Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something really cool, pun absolutely intended. We're going to reverse engineer the success of Blue Star. They are an absolute giant in the commercial refrigeration and air conditioning industry. I mean, founded way back in 1943, this company has literally been cooling the market for over 8 decades. They've survived brutal summers, completely changing economic landscapes, the whole shebang. Just think about the sheer difficulty of maintaining temperature control in a rapidly developing nation with extreme weather for that long. But, longevity alone doesn't guarantee survival, which brings us to a really compelling puzzle. So, here is the million-dollar question. Think about how much consumer behavior has changed since the 1940s. Today's market is hyper-digital, it is incredibly price-sensitive, and it's facing extreme climate demands. How does a legacy company not just survive all that, but adapt and completely dominate? Well, we're going to break down their exact blueprint. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. Targeting the cooling market. 2. Mastering the marketing mix. 3. Navigating the competitive landscape. And 4. Adapting to digital trends. Let's dive in. Starting off with Section 1, targeting the cooling market through segmentation, targeting, and positioning. What's wild here is how broadly, yet strategically, they slice up their audience. They aren't just selling to one type of buyer. Demographically, sure, they target middle and upper-income households for residential ACs, but they're equally focused on outfitting huge corporate offices, hotels, hospitals, and massive educational institutions. Geographically, they cover the giant metropolitan hubs, but the real growth engine? That lies in their push into emerging Tier 5 towns. And why does this matter? Because they're capturing consumers right at the exact moment they enter the middle class and get that new purchasing power. Psychographically, they are hunting for a very specific mindset. They want buyers who aren't just looking for the absolute cheapest box of cold air, but people who deeply value engineering quality, innovation, and long-term reliability. And all of that positioning boils down to one bold statement: nobody cools better. It's a huge flex, right? But it perfectly encapsulates their strategy. They want the market to associate their name not with some budget appliance, but with a heritage of superior cooling performance and pure engineering excellence. For a company with such deep business-to-business roots, making this kind of premium promise to everyday consumers is just a masterstroke in brand confidence. Moving on to Section 2, mastering the marketing mix, or the classic 4 Ps. Let's look at the product first. Their portfolio is massive. They offer everything from standard split-and-window ACs for your bedroom to giant commercial HVAC systems for sprawling airport terminals. They also dabble heavily in air and water purifiers, plus critical cold chain solutions for the food and pharma industries. But what really sets them apart is how their heavy-duty commercial DNA basically bleeds into their everyday consumer products. They're packing residential units with advanced inverter technology, smart Wi-Fi capabilities, cutting-edge filtration systems, and eco-friendly refrigerants. They aren't just selling a household appliance. They are literally selling commercial-grade, highly energy-efficient solutions totally customized for the home. But here's the catch. How do you actually sell a premium-positioned, tech-heavy AC in a market that is notoriously obsessed with finding the lowest possible price? Well, that brings us to their value-based pricing strategy. It's a very delicate balancing act. For their highly advanced models, they confidently charge a premium. No apologies there. But to capture real volume, they price their mid-range products highly competitively, and then they sweeten the deal with strategic seasonal and festive discounts. But their absolute secret weapon? Affordability through financial engineering. They aggressively push broad EMI and financing options. And the takeaway here is brilliant. If you can break a premium price tag down into bite-sized, manageable monthly payments, you can massively scale your market reach without ever cheapening your brand's hard-earned prestige. When it comes to place or distribution, they are simply everywhere. Exclusive brand stores, multi-brand electronics retailers, authorized dealers, major e-commerce platforms. But the key insight you really need to take away is their extremely aggressive geographic expansion. They are pushing incredibly deep into Tier 2, 3, 4, and even Tier 5 cities. Why? Because as infrastructure improves, that is exactly where a massive, rapidly growing share of new room EC sales originates. They're making sure their product is physically accessible right as these emerging markets get new disposable income and start experiencing rising temperatures. And then we have promotion. Here we see a massive strategic shift. Historically, a brand born in the 1940s relied heavily on traditional mass media, TV commercials, newspapers, huge outdoor billboards, radio ads. But today, they've dramatically pivoted their budget toward a highly flexible, data-driven digital marketing approach. We're talking search engine marketing, targeted YouTube ads, digital display campaigns, influencer collaborations. The reason is simple: measurable ROI. Digital lets them track exactly what works, which means they can optimize their ad spend and pivot instantly based on real-time consumer behavior. They also expertly leverage seasonal campaigns to dodge that dreaded winter revenue slump that haunts most cooling companies. Naturally, their advertising peaks right before and during the summer season when AC demand is just boiling over. But they don't go dormant in the winter. Instead, they shift their focus entirely to air purifiers, specifically targeting regions heavily affected by poor winter air quality. It's such a smart pivot that keeps the revenue engine running hot, regardless of how freezing it gets outside. All right, Section 3, Navigating the Competitive Landscape, looking at external pressures and internal strengths. Stepping onto the battlefield, Blue Star faces some really intense external pressures. They're constantly fending off aggressive heavyweights like Volta, Steigen, LG, Samsung, Hitachi. The threats are very real for sure. We're talking intense price wars, volatile raw material costs, rapid tech changes, and macroeconomic slowdowns. And yeah, their premium pricing does act as a weakness by limiting access to highly price-sensitive segments. But their internal strengths are just formidable. That strong brand reputation, combined with an incredible after-sales service network, builds a level of consumer trust that cheap competitors just cannot manufacture overnight. Plus, with massive opportunities on the horizon like growing AC penetration and the rise of smart homes, their deep commercial HVAC expertise gives them a highly unique competitive edge in the residential market. Finally, Section 4, Adapting to Digital Trends and the Future of Cooling. Look, the modern consumer journey has fundamentally changed. We don't just walk into a store blindly anymore, right? We heavily research online, we read exhaustive reviews, we watch video demos before we ever even think about pulling out our credit card. Recognizing this, Blue Star is doubling down on their digital future. They are investing heavily in SEO and content marketing to make sure they show up first when you search for a cooling solution. By actively targeting first-time AC buyers in those smaller, emerging cities through highly specific digital platforms, they successfully educate them on the benefits of smart, connected, and energy-efficient appliances. They are letting online product demos and community ratings do the heavy lifting of building modern trust, effectively proving that an 80-year-old brand can absolutely master the latest digital trends. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Blue Star has spent 80 years mastering the mechanics of cooling, but look at the massive opportunities on the horizon right now. Rapidly growing AC penetration, relentless urbanization, the explosion of smart home ecosystems, and frankly, steadily rising global temperatures. The demand for intelligent cooling is only going to skyrocket from here. The blueprint that got them to this point is undeniably impressive. But how they adapt this legacy strategy to meet the extreme climate and digital demands of the next 80 years, well, that is going to be their ultimate test. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.